This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about when your parent dies and you become the oldest generation. And this is something that we were talking about in the Midlife Women's group, and you should definitely join that group if you are a midlife woman, or you should recommend it to your wife if your wife is a midlife woman, because it's a bunch of us. We meet on Zoom every other week. There's a Facebook group. It's really cool. My new brainchild and passion project, and insert other cliche here. But I really do think it is a really good resource for a lot of women at this stage. And anyway, one of the things we were talking about is when your mother dies, for women, is like a huge change, because instead of being a daughter, you are only really a mother. Of course, if you have children, and if not, then you're a daughter with no mother. I mean, it's really sad. And if you're not close to your mother, then it's not like that problem just goes away. Your mother dies, and then you never get to have the relationship with her that you wanted to have. So whether or not you get along with her or with your father, when they leave, when they're not there anymore, then it's just you. And a lot of people are not really prepared for that. And I do want to get more into depth about that today, but I also want to tell you to subscribe, because we have over 200 subscriber episodes. The most recent one was the parenting long game, and before that, it was the cure versus management approach to mental and physical health issues, talking about how it is here versus different countries, and loads of others. Okay, so when your parent dies, usually happens when you're in midlife, if you're lucky, right? Before that, if you're in your 20s, 30s, or a child, of course, it is more traumatic, but it's still traumatic when your parent dies, no matter what age it is. And even if you expect it to happen, even if they're sick, even if you're older, even if they were an older parents, you kind of knew always that they were going to pass away earlier than maybe your peers' parents. And that is a situation that I hear about a lot from people, is like, if your parent had you in their 40s, let's say, then your peers, the parents, had them in their 30s, then you kind of always know that it may be coming sooner for you. And when your parents aren't there anymore, you are the top dog. You are the top generation. There's nobody to ask for advice. So people who are close to their parents, by the way, I know this is weird for adult children of dysfunctional families, but they ask their parents for advice. They do. Like it's like television. Like they ask their parent what their parent thinks, and if you're listening, you're an adult child of dysfunctional family, you may ask one parent but not the other. So, or you may ask an uncle or an aunt, or like a boss or a neighbor or a doctor or a therapist or a rabbi or a priest. But it's like that. You think that this person both has your best interests at heart and has wisdom from their years on the planet and all of their experiences. It's like a good parent is like a personal resource. It's can't be overstated, the privilege of having a parent that both has their own experiences that resonate with you, right? Like their life experience is something that you respect and value their wisdom. And also, in your heart that they would do anything for you and that you're the priority. And so therefore their advice is not self-mediated, not self-focused. It doesn't matter the impact on them. They're going to give you the best advice for you. Many people are listening and say, yeah, right, my parent is emotionally immature or self-involved, and I could never think that their advice would only have to do with me. But plenty of people can. Plenty of people, this is a fact of their life, is that their parent is on their side. And now that I'm saying it like this, by the way, recognize that if you didn't have that, then it's obviously likely you would be drawn to a similar dynamic in your romantic relationship, as I discuss all the time. So the people who really had a parent who's always on their side and helpful to them, and for sure they understand that their parent has their best interests at heart, they're going to go for a similar mate. They're going to go for somebody who also thinks that they're great and wants to give them the best opportunity and wants to give them the best advice and has their best interests at heart. That's real. So the reality here is that you do not get drawn to somebody who is self-absorbed or emotionally immature unless that was a similar dynamic that you saw growing up. And let me first, so I'll talk about those people too. So if your parent, let's say, is emotionally immature and self-involved, do you not grieve when they die? Of course you do. A lot of what you grieve for is the missed opportunities. You always kind of had in the back of your head, all right, well, maybe at some later point, I'll have a better relationship with my parent. Maybe later down the road, when I really need them in some way or another, they're going to come through. Or honestly, some people have fantasies like maybe when the parent stops drinking or they get their mental health in check, or maybe when they stop dating this person that they've been with, God knows for how long, so it doesn't really make sense, but it's just a fantasy. Or when I get divorced, then they'll come out with flying colors. They'll really help me then. Or if my kid was sick, or like any of these things. And then when the parent dies, then no longer can you believe that this is how it's going to be, that there will be a difference. And there's not going to be a difference. And so it's sad in both ways. When you lose a parent that you love and trust and that they're there for you all the time is obviously very sad. Now you don't know what to do without them, in a sense. You're struggling, you're floundering. Who do I ask when I have a deep question? Who wants to hear about the little petty dramas of my everyday life, if not my mother/my father? Who's going to come help me with some stupid little thing like hanging a picture? You know how many women, they're like 50 years old, they ask their father to hang a picture? A lot of women, And that's not bad. It's only like bad if they literally walk right past their husband and say, basically, fuck you, I'm going to ask my father because he knows how to hang a picture better. And yes, there are some situations like that. But in the majority of times, the father's around, he's puttering around his house, you call him, he comes over, he helps you with a little task, everybody feels good. And that's great, that's fine. But who then is interested? Right? And there's many people, by the way, that are not married. And there's many people who do not have good marriages. And some of the people who do not have good marriages do have loving parents that support them. And that is the major person then. That's the major people that support them, because it's not the spouse, or they're divorced, or they're widowed, or what have you. So the point is, if the person loves you and is there for you, it's obviously a huge loss. If the person loves you but cannot be there for you because of their own struggles, it's also a huge loss, because it's a loss of potential, and you have to grieve what the relationship really ended up being, which is not great, which really just isn't what you ever wanted it to be. And now there is really no choice to fix it, no chance to fix it. And you have no option but to just continue in the world that you're in. And the world that you're in is the one where you don't have a parent, and you never had the parent really that you wish that you did. And that's also very, very sad. This is a time that a lot of people start therapy because they are now the apex generation. They are the one, their primary role is to give the advice and wisdom to the younger generation, usually their own children. And they struggle with that, right? Because they liked to be in that kind of sandwich. We get a lot of bad things said about the sandwich generation, that you're also helping your parents, but you're also helping your kids. And that's obviously stressful and can be a range of different levels of stressful. But there's a lot of people that's a nice, cozy little sandwich. That's a positive sandwich. They have their child and they have their parent, and then, you go like maybe over to your mother's house, and then she kind of takes care of you a little bit and of your child, and you're in a nice cozy little sandwich where you do not have all the responsibility. You're not all child and you're not all parent. You're some of each. And this is why a lot of people like hanging out at their parents' house and bringing their kids over for Sunday dinner or whatever, or living close to their parents, because they get this positive sandwich feeling. And when you do not have that anymore, it's a big loss. It's a big change to your self-concept. And it's really a very big trauma to the system. And it's a big stressor. And the loss cannot be overstated, especially if you are in one of these situations that I'm saying, where you're either very close or not very close. There are some people who do all right now, with losing a parent. Some of these people are estranged, and honestly, then it's somewhat of a relief. Or really just have a terrible relationship with kind of not much hope of ever reconciling, and the parent just did a lot of bad stuff. And there's usually addiction and mental health issues, betrayal, bad stuff going on. And then, as I have a post about it, some people, that's very taboo, but some people are relieved when the parent dies. And other people think that that's crazy and monstrous. Well, those people usually didn't have bad experiences, right? So they can't really understand that. So they judge it, but they don't understand. But it's totally normal if your parent was very dysfunctional and your relationship with them was very, very dysfunctional, that you would have this sense of relief. And also people who are very independent. People that really they left home at 18, they never really looked back. They are usually more avoidant or more just honestly independent. Because sometimes, as I have a podcast, avoidant attachment isn't avoidant attachment. It's just somebody who's extremely independent. And they think about, they don't really ask anybody for advice. They just do what they do. And, they can't really imagine that their parent would have advice to give to them. They feel very different from their parent. Sometimes it's, just based on where they grew up, or the parent is from a whole different culture, or the parent is from a very different socioeconomic class and the person's been very successful on their own, or they are politically very different. Either way, no matter what it is, they feel so different from their parents that they kind of really cannot imagine, asking their parent for advice and it being at all resonant. And these people often don't ask others for advice either, and they're more self-motivated and self-directed. And in that case, the loss of a parent, it may be very sad, but it doesn't make you feel kind of at loose ends or like you don't know what to do or that you have lost a huge resource. Instead, it's a sad event but everybody feels like they're getting older, by the way. It's a huge change and a shift in how you view your own mortality. You are the next generation to die then, which is huge. And this is especially big when it's the parent that you were closer to, or when it's the last parent, right? So if you have your mother and your father, and then your father dies, and okay, that's terrible, that's sad. But then a few years later, your mother dies too. Well, then people feel like an orphan, no matter how old they are, and they feel really bad, and they feel alone, and they feel that they have just shifted up a generation, and now they're expected to be kind of the expert there with the younger generation. But often you don't feel like that because you haven't felt like that. You've always felt like there was somebody above you, and you have to recalibrate to say that no, there's not anybody above me. So this is just a huge part of the struggles of midlife, and losing a parent, no matter, as I've said, how you feel about them, can be huge. It's just a very, very big change. And the biggest change comes when it was unexplored. So because then it's like you're blindsided. So if this is something that resonates with you, this topic, then even if your parents are still alive, you should be talking about it in therapy. You should be thinking about it. How am I going to feel when my parents get older? If there's dementia involved, that's like a loss, disenfranchised grief pretty much, because they're still there, but they're not there. So that's a huge thing. That's very traumatic when your parent is physically there but not mentally there. And then kind of what am I going to feel like when they pass away, and how has my relationship with them been structured such that I would feel a range of different things, a range of different options, bereft, relieved, disappointed, the loss of confidence, like how am I set up so that I can become the oldest generation without a huge cataclysm? As with anything, the more that you think about certain things beforehand, then when they come to pass, you've already thought about them. They're not coming out of the blue. So many people put their head in the sand and then their parent dies. Their parent's like 90 years old and the person's acting like it was a surprise. You know, I mean, it can only be so much of a surprise. For many people who have thought about it, it's not as much of a surprise. You truly can prepare for things emotionally. You really can. This is the same thing with parenting. You know, a lot of people that I see who struggle the most with kids transitioning into the next age are the ones that put their head in the sand about it and said, no, everybody else feels X at this age, but it won't be me. Well, it's you, whether that's the toddler age, the teenage age, a young adult age, or people who say, oh no, I would never have trouble with my young adult's choices. I would always respect them. Yeah, right. You know, what about when they do something that you consider a bridge too far? What about then? You know, so people who have thought about these things and all of these different ways that they might feel at the next stage of life, whatever stage that is, they tend to feel more solid and more confident around what are obviously still very difficult changes, but at least they've thought about it. At least it's in their minds and they haven't put their head in the sand like an ostrich. All right, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Again, if any topics about midlife resonate with you and you're a woman, you should definitely join the Midlife Women's group. I'll link to it in the description. And we always have therapists and coaches working at Best Life that can help you individually if you're not a group person or if you're a guy, because I do not have a Midlife Men's group yet, as I am not a midlife man. And I will talk to everybody soon. Have a great day.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Kay Jewelers' early Black Friday sale is happening now. Get up to 50% off Black Friday deals and up to 40% off everything else. Don't miss this sale. Start your season with savings, only at Kay. Exclusions apply. See Kay.com/exclusions for details.
Guys, bye-bye.